Hello and welcome to Retro Breeze. In this video we're going to be taking a quick look at Batocera Linux running on the AYN Loki. Batocera Linux is a gaming focused operating system that uses the emulation station frontend. And I just kinda wanted to see what the very first out-of-box experience would be here. Perhaps it wouldn't boot at all, perhaps there'd be some major issues. I just kinda wanted to look into those things and see what the situation was. But to my absolute amazement, this is an incredibly solid option for your AYN Loki already, without any optimizations, without any special configuration or a special image. Right from when you install it, Batocera works extremely well. So after installing the Batocera image to an SD card, I booted into the Loki BIOS. Now as far as I can tell, there's no way to boot into the BIOS just on the device itself, or at least I haven't found it yet. So instead I connected a keyboard and tapped the delete key until it booted into the BIOS, which are sideways. Anyway, then all I needed to do was select the SD card from the list and boot into Batocera. But in my case, I actually set it to auto boot from the SD card from now on too. So if there's no SD card inserted, I'll go into Windows. With my Batocera SD card inserted, I'll go into Batocera. And so here we are. Now this is only going to be a quick overview because I really want to take plenty of time and see what's possible here. Also, I haven't had the time to set up PS Vita, PS3 or Xbox 360 yet, so we're just going to test a few systems capping out at Wii. So let's just go ahead and jump into some PSP gameplay. Now, on first glance I noticed that this was kind of stuttery and slow. And then I realized that Batocera has PSP configured, first of all at the PSP's resolution, not the native resolution of the screen, and that frame skip was set to 2. I'm not really sure why, but I just set everything to max, so max screen resolution, no frame skip, and other than a couple of stutters right at the beginning of OutRun 2006, everything else, and I mean absolutely everything else here, ran completely perfect. 60 frames a second, it looks absolutely stunning, the speakers sound great, and everything just seems to work. Moving over to another heavy PSP game, we have God of War. And this one I was expecting to have some kind of slowdown, but I don't know, I guess I'm just way underestimating this. Because this also ran completely perfect. 60 frames a second, 1080p, looks like a PS2 game, absolutely excellent performance. Now a couple of things I've noted already by now is that hardware-wise everything works, all the controls work, even the hotkeys work using the button on the bottom left here. The only really noticeable thing that's missing here is RGB control. So these RGB lights are just gonna cycle through the different colors. There's no way to turn them off or change them yet, as far as I can tell. And also standby doesn't seem to work either. Pressing the power button while you're in the Batocera menu seems to shut down the device completely, but that's okay too. Again, I can probably change this in the settings, I just haven't looked yet. So now let's go ahead and go into some GameCube. And you'll have to forgive me, I have no idea why I didn't enable widescreen hacks here, but here we are playing in 4x3, and similar to PSP, I mean this is completely conquered on Batocera on the Loki. Everything works 100% 1080p upscaling, Super Smash Bros. Here was running completely and utterly flawless. And the other game I tested was Star Fox Assault, which was similarly excellent performance. And I have to say the speakers on this thing are really, really nice, they work really well. I also tried a little bit of Sonic Adventure DX on GameCube, and for some reason this one had a lot of graphical issues and some stuttering and slowdown. I'm almost entirely sure that's emulator based and not performance based, so I'm just going to chalk it up to that for now and take another look at it in the future when I've had time to tinker. Another thing I've noticed that works perfectly on the Batocera side of Loki is the battery indicator. It seems to be extremely accurate and even shows a low battery warning when you get low on battery. And that seems like it would be obvious, but for an out-of-the-box experience I think that's pretty good. So now let's go ahead and try out some PlayStation 2. And here I'm playing Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII. Now there is an issue with the controls on this because of the emulator, not because of this device. So you have to forgive when Vincent starts walking around instead of running. But as you can hopefully see here, this is also running completely full speed, 1080p, no issues whatsoever. This game usually has a lot of stuttering and slowdown in the first level, due to the transparency on Vincent's cape and the fire effect. And I know this because if you go into first person mode, the issues basically disappear until fire is on screen. But here on the Loki, I mean, absolutely no issues. Whatever is causing that slowdown isn't causing enough slowdown to make me notice anything while I'm playing this game, which is just great. Now here's an often forgotten Sonic game, which is Sonic Unleashed on PlayStation 2, aka the game where you just bump into everything all the time, and can't really turn any corners. This game is also running completely full speed, no issues on the Loki. Now something I want to draw your attention to at this point, and you can't tell because I don't have the game audio playing, but the Loki's fan has not even turned on at this point. Or if it has, I certainly couldn't hear it while I was playing. Now I actually got a little bit worried that maybe this was running way too hot, but it doesn't seem to be the case, and you'll see why with our next game. And so here's God of War on PlayStation 2 running at full speed 1080p, and this is utterly flawless. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anything emulate this game this well, it's so good. But with this game, the fan ramped on, finally, so I'm confident that fan control is working well in Batocera too. However, I want to note that the fan is one part of the Loki that I think a lot of people are going to have a huge issue with. It's just way too loud. However, emulating this game on Batocera versus emulating it on Windows is completely different. On Windows, I can expect the fan going full pelt with this game, but on Batocera, it's not very loud at all, in fact. And it never got to a volume where it was bothering me at all, which has happened multiple times on the Loki for me so far. So all I can deduce from this is that Batocera is a much lighter operating system, it requires a lot less processing power, and maybe the emulators are better optimized too. But I seriously had absolutely no issue here playing God of War at 1080p 60 FPS with the fan going. It just didn't bother me at all, so that's a great thing. So now let's jump over to some Wii games. The first game I tested is one of my favorite games on Wii, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up. This game has an unfortunately bad reputation, first of all because the character designs were based on the 2008 movie for no reason, and then because like half the characters are Rabbids from Rayman Raving Rabbids, also for no reason. Anyway, it's a Smash-like game and it runs absolutely perfectly on the Loki. This again is a game that I don't think I've ever seen running this well and at 1080p as well. There was one single minor stutter the first time the whale came up and then the first time the ship came back in. But other than that, this is running absolutely flawless. And again, I want to reiterate, this is directly out of the box. I didn't change anything here except for maybe resolution to make it higher than it was. This is totally out of the box performance and I think it is absolutely amazing. And this game is just really, really fun. Really, it deserves a better reputation than it has. And it's on PS2 as well. Now we're going to look at one of my absolute favorite games on Nintendo Wii. No, it's not Go Vacation, it's 007 GoldenEye, the Activision remake. This game is incredible, it's a total reimagining of the original movie with Daniel Craig in the lead role. It's absolutely excellent. And like everything else I've showed so far, this ran with zero problems whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. and I definitely consider this one of the most graphically intensive games on Nintendo Wii. You'll have to apologize for the reflections in the screen here. I was really struggling with the light that I had to get it to look very well, so just forgive me for that, but hopefully you can see that the performance is absolutely brilliant. I have to say that I'm not an FPS person at all, I barely ever play them, but the Loki with its gigantic analog sticks and responsive triggers make me just want to play FPS games on it. Like, I've never experienced that before. This system makes me want to play FPS games. Although now I'm thinking about Go Vacation on Wii, and I think I'll play that instead. But not right now because I don't have a Wii remote handy. So the last game we're going to look at here on Wii is the Conduit 2. Yet another underrated Wii game, but this game is a complete rip-off of Halo, and if you have heard me talking about games in the past at all, I just really like rip-offs. I don't know why, I've just got a thing for them. Anyway, I would probably say that the Conduit 2 might be the most graphically intensive Wii game. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but there's a lot of reflections and bloom and stuff like that going on. And sure enough, this was the first game on the Loki that I noticed struggling. Not in general, because the general game speed was fine, but whenever I killed one of these little spider demon things here, the game would stutter and slow down, probably because of the transparency on this smoke. However, what I did then is I lowered the resolution to 720p instead and went back into the game. And at 720p, everything worked perfectly. However, everything also looked exactly the same. And this was similar to the Odin, because the Odin and the Loki share the same display. And it's so small and so sharp for being 1080p that you can usually lower it to 720p and just see no difference whatsoever. But anyway, running the Conduit 2 on Wii at 720p I had absolutely no issues at all, and running it in 1080p it mostly ran full speed until these transparentish smoke textures were on screen and then it slowed down. I'm guessing that there's some kind of emulation hack or enhancement I can enable to fix this issue. I haven't looked into it at all, but if I can, I'm guessing this game will play at 1080p. So that's it for the gameplay overview of Wii games and below on the Loki. Now, I've shared a few observations and I'm just going to go through a few of those again. My first finding is I can't seem to boot into the Loki's BIOS using the gamepad controls themselves. It seems I have to connect a keyboard, which is kind of annoying, but I might just be missing something. I've tried all of the normal shortcuts to boot stuff. Secondly is that the fan and thermal system seems to kick in and work perfectly. And it seems to work a lot better than it does on Windows, or rather, the performance of the Loki is better at lower temperatures. And the fan never got loud enough to bother me, which is something it does all the time when I'm using Windows. Next is that the speakers seem to sound absolutely perfect, no issues with drivers or anything there, and that the RGBs cannot be modified or turned off or changed at all. Also, the battery indicator seems to be perfect. I had no issues with it whatsoever, and everything seemed to be pretty accurate to where the battery really was. Also, networking features worked perfectly too. So I connected to my Wi-Fi and I was able to access the Batocera Samba share and copy over my ROMs over the network. While doing this though, I did have one issue. I was playing God of War on PSP, while I was transferring over a bunch of PS2 games, and suddenly the screen went dim, and none of the controls would respond, and then the fan kicked in really loud, and I had to power the whole device off. When it came back on, everything was fine, but of course I had to start the transfer of the PS2 games again. I think this is just common sense, like don't play games while you're copying files over. I think the disk usage in that case is just way too high, especially for an SD card. So that's common sense. I didn't have any in that moment, but hey. Other than that, I had no issues whatsoever with networking features. Also, as I'm recording this morning, Batocera has had a system update, and I was able to update it on the Loki absolutely fine with no issues at all. And that pretty much covers this quick overview of Batocera on the AYN Loki. So far, I'm seeing absolutely excellent performance out of the box. I'm seeing no major bugginess, no major issues whatsoever. And actually, I would say that at this point, this seems pick up and play to me. There's absolutely no issues whatsoever. If you already have a Batocera SD card going, I'm almost certain that you can just plug it into your Loki right now and start playing. At least that's been my experience. I do plan to do a more comprehensive Batocera overview, including a lot more gameplay, and some more systems being tested too. Please let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see in that video. Specific games, specific systems, absolutely anything else that you'd like to see. That particular video is still a week or two away, so there's still plenty of time to get your opinions in there and let me know what you'd like me to try out. I'm hoping to have maybe Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Vita going then as well, but we'll see. Those are a little more complicated on Batocera, but that's coming from somebody who's never even tried those games on Batocera, so I'm sure I can figure it out. That's going to be it for this one, so please go ahead and leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and if you want to see more Loki and Linux content. And please subscribe to the channel if you want to see that too, it really helps me out a lot. Thank you very much for watching Retro Breeze, and I look forward to seeing you again with more Linux Loki shenanigans very soon.